the panel on Iran, oil, and the Arab and Islamic lobbies and NGOs. My name is Eugene Roth, and I'll be chairing the panel. I'm from the University of Miami. Some people have said that this seems to be a potpourri panel where we have a whole variety of issues, and I wanted to give a bit of context, to what this panel is trying to achieve in terms of the various presentations. We have left the age of symmetry and entered into what is now fondly known as an asymmetrical era. We had no longer, in terms of statecraft and warcraft, we no longer have armies facing off long lines against each other. We no longer have negotiators sitting across from each other at tables. Negotiating, what we have is an asymmetrical construct. We have asymmetrical battlefields, asymmetrical warfare, and a whole variety of asymmetries which characterize the interaction between different nations and different governments, and non-states and non-governments. There is also an asymmetry in the threat that process, like a peace process, encounters and faces. There is asymmetry in the nature of strategic threat. This panel will reflect that asymmetry in the sense that Iran is reflective of a threat of weaponized ideology and theology. Oil and the political process shows the nature of new threats. NGOs, which are considered to be the basis of a civil society and the basis of continuity within that civil society, now becomes a vehicle for opposition to things like the peace process. The NGOs now use foreign funds to operationalize their opposition to processes that are intended to further peace and some level of tranquility. The panel will explore these threats, intend to give you some sort of sense of how these threats are evolving. The panelists, I'm very pleased to introduce the panelists. First to go will be David Menashri. He is the director of the Center for Iranian Studies at Tel Aviv University and a Nazarian professor for modern Iranian studies. His most recent publication is Post-Revolutionary Politics and Iran. Rafi Israeli, to my far left, is professor of Islam, Middle East, and Chinese history at the Hebrew University. He has more than 30 books, and he is one of his most recent books is Islamic anti-Semitism in Christian lands. Gerald Steinberg on my right is the professor at Butler, center right, given today's political. Are you in the cabinet or out? Gerald Steinberg is professor at Bar-Ilan University. He's the director of the Begin Sadat Center, and he is also the founding director of NGO Monitor. He's published extensively, and mostly on strategy, diplomacy, and Israel-U.S. strategic relationship. And finally, Edwin Black is the well-known New York Times bestseller author. He has over 80 books in 14 different languages, with something like 1 million books still in print, which I think comes close to Agatha Christie. But in any event, his most recent book is Farhud, The Roots of Arab Nazi influence in the Holocaust. Those are our panelists. We're really privileged and pleased to have them, and they will be speaking. The terms of reference, as it were, for the panelists, they've been asked to speak for 10 minutes each. Then we will open it up to the floor for comments and questions. I would ask that when you make a comment, make it briefly, please. If you have a question, again, briefly, identify yourself beforehand, and then we'll open up for last-minute comments from the panelists themselves. So I call, to begin with, I call on David Menashri to speak about Iran.
It's the first time that I hear that Rafi Israeli is in the far left.
All right.
Now, I know that the topic is so wide, and I spoke with the organizers, and I can't speak about oil, the NGOs, and others. I'll stick to something that I believe, after 40 years of study, I know one or two things about Iran. And given the brief period of time that is allocated to each of us, I want to address three questions. What is the problem? Whose problem it is? And what can be done? What is the problem? Let me say what is not the problem. If following the American style, you buy one, I give you one free. What is not the problem? The problem is not the people of Iran. And I would also say the problem, as far as I'm concerned, is not even the type of regime that the Iranians have. They can have whatever regime they wish to have. They can have a republic, monarchy. Yesterday we heard about banana republic, whatever they want. That's their prerogative to decide the type of state or government that they want to have. I'm not concerned by the type of government. I'm concerned with the policy of this government. There is in Iran. Iran is a complex country, much more than most people believe, and it's not totally black as it's being portrayed in Western media. It's certainly not as white as the Iranians wish us to believe. It's a mixture of many traits and camps, even within the ruling elite. But I think Iran is a civil society which is much better than any other country in the Middle East. 60% of the students in Iran are female. 60 years ago, there was not one woman in Iranian university. Newspapers, books published in Iran. Of course, they publish, the editors sent to jail. There is a constant struggle between suppression and expression, and most of the people who have said something went to jail. I think Iran is one of these countries that one can say that they have freedom of expression, but they don't have freedom after expression.
Touche.
This kind of trend in Iran. But I have a lot of respect for women organizations, student organizations. I wish Israel would have student organizations like the Iranian have. So I pay my dues to the civil society in Iran. We don't have a problem with them. The problem is with the government in Iran. And the government of Iran is radical. They are basing their power on three main elements. They speak as though they are representative of God on earth. They wake up in the morning and they know exactly what is the will of God. I don't know what is the communication. Today it's modern world. We have some of them in Jerusalem, so we are not to be very surprised. There are people who pretend to know exactly what is the will of God. Now, if God is not enough, they have the Revolutionary Guards. And then they have the will to fight for their power. They learn the lesson of their own revolution and they say it plainly. We are not going to let them, our opponents, Green movement, whatever it is, to do to us what we did to the Shah. And just to quote Misbah Yazdi, the mentor of Ahmadinejad, he said the following sentence, but I think it's blasphemy, coming from a leading Iranian scholar. He said that whoever thinks Islam is religion of mercy does not understand what is Islam. Islam says, Ayatollah Uzma, Grand Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, is religion that dictates to us to take sharp swords and cut the heads and tongues of people who speak or act against us. So these are the people that we have problem with. Now we're coming to the nuclear issue. So what is the problem? Is the combination of such a radical ideology on the one hand, holding nuclear capabilities on the other hand. The question is not really, or it is the question, whether or not they will use it, but the very possession of such capabilities will change the geostrategic map of the Middle East to a way that I think the world cannot tolerate. Now imagine what will happen after Iran is nuclear. Then there is a nuclear race in the Middle East. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, you name it. This region is a madhouse without all kinds of toys to have this government. Imagine if 5-6 countries will have nuclear weapons, what we're going to have in the Middle East. What will be the price of oil if Iran is nuclear? Who dictate the price of oil? And what will happen to radical movements, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others, under the shadow of the umbrella of Iranian nuclear. So this is the thing. We can live with radical movements, we can live with nuclear countries, we can